Our next speaker, Keith Stewart, is the manager of the climate change campaign at the World Wildlife Fund of Canada. He was head of the smog and climate change campaign at the Toronto Environmental Alliance and co-authored Hydro, the Decline and Fall of Ontario's Electric Empire. Keith Stewart.
Well, I want to thank the organizers for putting this event together. They've done an amazing job. I know it's not easy to get people out on a Saturday, and I want to thank all of you for coming, and it's a great sign. I was not expecting actually this many people, and it's great to see that there is this level of interest. I'd also like to thank Peter for that stirring opening speech. One of the reasons I think I was invited today was because I've had the bittersweet pleasure of having read the entire environmental plan and can actually quote a number of the recommendations, chapter and verse. Because it's been significant over the last number of years in terms of moving things forward slowly in this city. Inevitably, there's a lot of overlap between what we're going to talk about today, because the thing about ecosystems, it's all about interconnections, and you can't actually separate off different parts. I'm here to talk about Toronto's air. More specifically, I want to talk about the smog that kills about 1,700 people a year in this city, according to our medical officer of health, and leaves the rest of us often needing to basically chew a little before inhaling. I also want to talk about smog's evil twin, climate change, because the two are related. They come from the same source and they reinforce each other, and this is something that you should all go home and write a little note to Mr. Harper explaining that, in fact, you can't solve smog without doing something about climate change. Trying to tell people that you can is simply coming up with reasons for inaction. Now, the sources of smog and climate change are fairly straightforward. It's where we get our energy from and how we use it, coal-fired electricity, natural gas burned in our homes, offices, and factories. It comes from transportation, cars, trucks, planes, including planes that land at the Toronto Island Airport. Comes from urban design, because with good urban design, we could actually have a transit lifestyle in this city, so you wouldn't need a car. It's related to how many trees we have and how the urban heat island effect, how cool we can keep the city without having to turn on air conditioners. It's about architecture, how we design and build buildings, which Greg Allen knows more about, he's forgotten more about than I'll ever know. It's also related to water, because when you look at the implications of climate change for the water supply in this country, it's truly scary. And even things like the boring old stuff of building sewers in Toronto, well, we're building them all the wrong size. Unless we do something, what Kevin will talk to you about. So on the smog front, the city has actually made a number of often quite progressive commitments about doing something about clean air in the original environmental plan, but then also a bunch since then at the behest of citizens and various people who've pushed various things. The last time I counted, there was about 24 sort of really significant actions that City Council had promised to take, and a whole bunch of other smaller ones on the air front. I'm not going to be able to go through them in any detail in my 10 minutes here, but they're all lovingly detailed in the 9 annual editions of the Toronto Smog Report Card put out by the Toronto Environmental Alliance that you can go to the website and read. Fascinating stuff. The fact that I wrote 6 of them has nothing to do with my analysis. And as Peter pointed out, relative to other jurisdictions, Toronto's actually not too bad. We're considered a leader. Relative to have we done what we promised to do, we've actually done a bunch of them, some others not. I'll give you a quick outline. Relative to what is actually necessary to prevent dangerous climate change and to stop having hundreds and thousands of people dropping dead from air pollution, we haven't done nearly enough. We're woefully lacking in action. Now, in terms of the overview, the city's actually been pretty good in terms of improving the energy efficiency of its own buildings and operations and helping other building owners and managers in this city improve their own energy efficiency. They're actually really good at it, and they have it down to a pretty good science. Toronto Hydro in the last couple of years has emerged as a major leader, well, the leader in the province on energy conservation. We've gone absolutely nowhere in terms of our commitment to buy 25% of the city's power from green energy, from renewable sources. We're nowhere on that one. Haven't bought any. We were supposed to be 25% last year. Public transit. Well, that would be a long time. It's basically a tale of woe. But at least the city has stopped cutting Through the ridership growth strategy, they're actually looking at how do we get more people onto TCC rather than how can we get fewer. And in the Transit City report, there is a vision out there for how we could make Toronto into a transit city. Ultimately, however, that means getting cars out of the way, and that is not a politically easy thing to do for any of you who might be running for council. You'll soon discover that. There's been lots of talk, but very little action on pedestrian and bike issues, and these issues continue to get basically no respect. There's been actually some really great work by the city in terms of switching to greener vehicles for its own use, hybrids, smaller vehicles. You know, you don't need to drive around in a massive honking truck if it's just one person going to drop something off. They got a smart car for that now. Using biofuels like biodiesel in the city's fleet to help reduce pollution. Intergovernmental front, the city's made some really solid efforts to drag the province and the federal government, often kicking and screaming along into doing some stuff. And into taking action. But when it comes to the sort of the sixth category that we use to group the actions in the smog report card, the rather nebulous category of leadership or vision, we haven't been able to break through the inertia of a firmly entrenched status quo. And that status quo, portions of it are actually built right into the fabric of the city and have to be rebuilt. Breaking through that inertia means going beyond a laundry list of quick starts and easy actions and transforming the city so that we cut our release of greenhouse gases by 30% by 2020 and by 80% by 2050. You don't do that by tweaking things around the margins. But rather than give you a prioritized list of emissions reductions projects the city could actually implement, I think the priority has to be getting off of our collective butts and making change in the world. Because there's an election coming. But to break through this inertia, it's not enough to elect great people to city council and then go back to watching Survivor on TV. We actually have to get up every day and keep the pressure on over the next 4 years and then elect even better people the next time around. Because without an active and frankly often quite angry citizenry to keep them on the green path, the siren song of the status quo is going to seep right back into this building. And we've all seen it happen in the past, and we don't want to repeat it. Keeping up the pressure doesn't mean just getting mad and coming in and shouting. It means harnessing our collective imagination to propose new solutions and come up with a new vision of where this city could go. And that actually requires talking to each other in forums like this. It also means vociferously supporting people when they try and do the right thing. Too often we say, yeah, you guys should do this, and when they try and do it, there's people who kick up a fuss against, and no one shows up to say, keep going, guys, keep going, keep going. And without that, they won't. They'll figure, oh, it's too hard. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to some of my colleagues, but again, I just want to thank you all for coming out, and I hope all the candidates here are going to be putting forward green platforms when they're out talking to people on the street, because that's how democracy works. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Keith.